You know what's been on my mind lately? Friendship. And not in that casual, surface level way, but in that deep, soul stirring way that makes you examine the relationships that have shaped who you are. You know what I mean? Some of my biggest heartbreaks have been from friendship. And I realized that for the better part of the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I've actually been a little bit bound up, I guess, is a great way to put it. A little bound up about making new friends and really diving deep in the friendships that I have. And I've been thinking about it for a while, but lately it's been really, really bubbling up to the surface. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was at this mastermind event in Vancouver, and we did this exercise called Want, Ask, Offer. And when it came to my offer, without hesitation, I said, friendship. My offer is friendship to anyone who wants to make friends, or something like that. Anyway, it surprised me actually because, of course, here I was surrounded by brilliant minds talking about business and growth and scaling. And what was bubbling up from my heart was this pure, simple desire for connection. Speaking of connection, let me tell you about my friend Christi. We have been friends now for over 25 years. We met at the time we had just recently gotten hired to work at Blue Shield of California, and we were in the same training class. And I didn't know her before, getting this job. I had never met her before. Although, as it turned out, we had worked somewhere at the same place prior, but we didn't know each other. But anyways, I was really going through a difficult, challenging time. She didn't know that. Nobody knew that. And I think it was like day 3 of the training. I was in the bathroom. I came out the stall and she was standing at the sink washing her hands. And she said, I prayed for you last night. Let me tell you, I didn't roll my eyes, but I was rolling them on the inside. Like, what? You prayed what? So I did ask the question, like, what did you pray? And she said, I prayed whatever you're going through, that God wouldn't make it hurt so bad. It hit me like a ton of bricks because I really was going through something that was hurting pretty bad. I was going through a divorce at the time. And again, she didn't know that. Now here we are 25 plus years later, we are still friends and we live in different states. And sometimes we only talk a couple of times a year unless something major happens. But every single conversation feels like we just spoke yesterday. And last year we both turned 50 and we decided that we were going to celebrate together. And so we rented a Verbo, which is like an Airbnb, but different. So we rented a Verbo and spent the weekend swimming naked and talking about absolutely everything. We laughed and lamented the things that needed lamenting and reflecting on how far we've come and how much we've grown. It was pure magic. My heart was so full. It was everything. It was great. And again, you know what that weekend taught me was that friendship, like everything else, it evolves like we do. The friendships that last aren't the ones that stay the same. They're the ones that grow with us. They're the ones that we can say, I'm different now. And instead of that being scary, it's exciting and it's an invitation, to know each other in new ways. Then there are my sisters. I am in the middle of a sister sandwich. And they're my ride or dies. There's something special about having siblings who also double as friends. They've known you forever and seen you through all the phases and love you anyway. But not everybody has, siblings. And not everybody that has siblings likes their siblings, right? Like that is not usual for everyone, that sometimes your besties become people that you choose and not people that you were born into the familial container with, right? And that leads me to something that we probably should talk about since we're talking about friendship, and that is making new friends in midlife, right? I think Bumble is one of the few apps that you can swipe right to find a friend like you can find a date. It's interesting because most of us want to cultivate friendships organically, even though we're now dating and dating has taken a different turn. But, like, how do you even ask someone to be your friend without feeling like you're in third grade? When you're like 40 or 50, like how do you ask someone to be your friend, right? A long time ago, I had gone to a Toastmasters meeting. I had been asked to speak there, and at the time, I didn't know it was Toastmasters because I probably would not have said yes, just because I wasn't very confident about speaking yet. But anyways, after the meeting, a few weeks later, the president of that particular chapter of Toastmasters reached out to me and asked if we could have a phone chat. And so, he was talking about the talk I gave and how it impacted him. And then he told me this story about someone who said they wanted to be friends with him. And he was taken aback when the other person asked, "What are the terms of this relationship?" And when he said that, I was like, wow, that is deep. That is deep. And it sounds odd at first, maybe even formal, but think about it, like, how revolutionary is that? When we spend so much time defining our romantic relationships, we talk about, what we want, what we need, what are our deal breakers. But friendships, we just kind of wing it. And not that there's anything wrong with winging it, but what if we brought the same kind of intention to our friendships? Again, like now that we're in this new season and making new friends means something different. It means something different just because of who we are. We can still approach friendship the same way. You can still ask someone to be your friend. I should add that at that mastermind event I was talking about, I have now connected with two different women and we are building friendship. So it can happen. It can happen. But I think a lot of us also need to spend some time thinking about how to deepen the friendships we already have. Because while, again, friendships evolve and they can be these profound connections, but we still need to nurture them. We still need to actively cultivate that depth, right? So here are three things that you can use, three ways to create more intimacy in your friendships. And this can apply to new or old friendships. And these are actually some things that I've probably mentioned in a different context in previous episodes, but they ring true here too. And the first one is about practicing radical honesty, and not the brutal kind, the brave kind, right? Instead of saying I'm fine when you're not fine, it's okay to say, like, I'm struggling today. It's okay to say, I really just need someone to listen, to really give your friends the chance to show up for you. And when you're cultivating new friendships, that might feel really vulnerable, but vulnerability is the sweet spot. It's a strength, right? Not a weakness. It is how we connect with each other, because it's not really about like exposing your soft underbelly more than it's about just being real and honest about where you are. The second way to create more intimacy in new or existing friendships is to create a sacred space for your friendships. Like creating meaningful time. And it doesn't have to be all the time because we all are busy. We're still juggling all these different things, all these different roles we play, all the different activities. So It's like Christy and I, we didn't grab a quick coffee. We created an entire weekend to reconnect and really be present with each other. And maybe that's not always reasonable. I mean, that's not something Christy and I do every year, by the way. It was a special event. We were turning 50 or whatever. But, a couple of years ago, she lives in Colorado. I flew out and, spent a few days with her and her family, and that was lovely. Earlier this year, we just had a Zoom call. We had a Zoom call, or we talked for several hours and caught up. It was lovely to see her face. Would it have been nice to be able to hug and touch each other? Absolutely. But it was the next best thing. So it doesn't always have to mean meeting in person. And this could happen. Like sometimes you might have some friends. I have some friends that, like my friend Caitlin Grace in New Zealand, we have never met in person. And every time we connect on Zoom, it's like coming home to each other. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an in-person meeting. That's nice when you can make that happen. But just creating some sacred space to spend time really being present with your friends is a beautiful thing. And the third thing is to ask better questions. So move beyond, like, how are you? Because sometimes we are programmed to not even answer that honestly because it's one of those questions that comes up so often that we just kind of answer it automatically without really thinking and or being present enough in our bodies to cultivate a genuine response. But what if you ask something like, what's going really well right now for you? Like that kind of different, better question, it takes people completely out of that automated response. So, again, like, what's lighting you up? What are you super excited about? What's making your heart tender? How is your heart? These questions invite real conversation and really build connection. Cultivating ways to deepen our connection in friendship and platonic relationships is important because, in Western culture, we have this weird hierarchy where romantic love sits at the top, like it's the crown jewel of relationships. And I'm not saying romantic relationships aren't important, but friendship is the anchor, right? It's what it's the thing that holds us steady through every season of our lives. Like, who is there when your heart is falling apart? Or when it feels like life is threatening to swallow you whole? We often turn to our friends, right? During those things. So let's get to the homework because of course there is homework. The two things I want you to do is first, I want you to reach out to a friend. Maybe someone you haven't talked to in a while, and instead of the usual catch up, share something vulnerable. Open the door for that deeper connection we're talking about. And second, I want you to think about what you need from your friends right now. What are your terms? What kind of friend do you want to be? What kind of friendship do you want to create? Because here's what I know for sure. We are all craving genuine connection. We are all craving love. We all want real friendship, the kind where we can show up exactly as we are in our messy, magnificent glory. And remember, love isn't just about romance. It's about all the ways we choose to show up for each other. It's about creating space for growth, for change, for evolution. It's about saying, I see you. I accept you. I love you. And I'm here for all of it. Right? So until next time, work on your friendships. Really pour into those containers. Nurture the precious connections that you already have, and maybe make some new friends. Because friendships are not the backdrop to our lives. I think that they might be the very heart of it. I love you.